Hello there, welcome. Today's video will be the first video of the fabrication method of semiconductors and microelectronic circuits. So, for the previous videos, we talked about how the lithography works and how it processes and the total process of making the semiconductors like FinFET, MOSFET, and anything else we can try. Like the pattern reticle mask anyway. So today's main topic will be about within the procedure, the light in the lithography or the photolithography, the light is the most significant factor. So let's see. Let's guess we are making a mask. Then as the scaling size down, we need more precise and more downside and more small size, maybe close to the micrometer size length models. So as we came out the reticle size, which means we're making the making the semiconductors, maybe the process size will be close to the one die size. Die means in a wafer there will be lots of dies, one block in simply. So let's see. We're making the wafer reticle and we're making the wafer and the lithography. Light is the most significant and maybe the major host of procedure of fabricating the semiconductors or microelectronics, which means within the powers of the light, in short, with the intensity and how the light spread, we can make the pattern size, length, and area, and how it can interfere, and whether it will make the pattern precise or just etching or carving out the procedure anyway. So light have maybe the light have two factors, so wave and as a particle. So with the light we can make the semiconductors. So first make the silicon wafer and then oxide coating and deposit the photoresist, and within the two methods of positive and negative way, we can make the patterns with the mask or reticle that have already pattern mask that can block the light. And within this reticle or mask, we can make the pattern as we wanted. But we know, I hope you know about the slit effect when the light injected and when getting out or reflected, the light will be distorted. Okay. So let's see. Light. People are making the. Let's see. We just made a vapor that is mainly with the silicons, and we deposit a layer of photoresist. Let's say that's a PR. So first we deposit a PR on the vapor's surface. But here is one fact we must consider. So what is it? Maybe the evenly spread PR over the surface. So it means when we deposit the layer of PR on the surface, it is important how we can evenly spread the PR on the surface and how we cleanly make up it easily. So first, maybe the thickness and the evenness of the PR surface will be the most significant within the process of making a layer of the PR. So there are many methods. But first, spin. Spin is just something rotating. Okay, so let's guess. Here is the vapor and some processed surface or product here. And let's see. I want to let a layer of the PR over the surface. Of course, as first spin. So we make a liquid of the PR vector or materials over, then it will be like this. And as the time passes, it will spread to evenly to the side and the sector area. So after this, we spin. Then the liquid or the material of the PR will be more evenly spread like this. So first, spin the. So at here, we can know that the thickness and the evenness of the PR will be related to the angular velocity. It means how we spin the vapor fast to let evenly the PR, and the time how we have it spinned. And then the viscosity, which means how it is sticky. So let's guess. You have a water of a cup. There is a tray here. You pour water. Since the water's viscosity is very super low, the water will just be spread. But let's get there is a honey of a cup. You pour it. Maybe it will take some time to pour it over fully. Then the honey will be just accumulated in the center and will be spread slowly. Okay, but let's get you just spinning the tray that honey is overlayered. The honey is overlapped. Then the honey will spread, and finally you will have somewhat evenly surfaced one, like this vector. Like this model. So I said, so maybe the first using vector of the PR have some vector of the water. So sorry, it means liquid. Liquid is very movable one. So how we read the angle and how we spin it best and time, the liquid will be spread and finally will get out from the surface as it spins with even torque. So after making the even surface, we need soft bake to finish the water vectors or solvent to hard anodize the PR. After soft baking, the PR will be hardened enough and maybe it will work like a hard thing, not water, or some hard product. Okay. And second, the second way of making the PR layer over the surface will be coating. Of course, there is two methods of coating. First, dipping, and secondly, spraying. You know what is spraying and what is dipping. Dipping means just, let's say you have some snack or meat, you have a snack and there is a honey tray. There is a cup and have a tray, there is a snack in your hand and a cup full of honey. You just dip, then the honey will be attached to the surface of the snack. So it means this is how we make the dipping method of the PR, and secondly, spraying. Spraying is very easy. Just letting on the particles of the PR, then it will be maybe evenly attached to the surface. Okay, so we know there is two types of PR when developing. First, First, positive way, and second, negative way. For the positive way, when getting light, the sector area that just receives or exposed to the light will be weakened and will vanish. And second, negative way. If the sector area that just exposed to light will be hardened, and then it can be worked as a mask or pattern. So, as this PR has some resin, maybe similar to the polymer or plastic, and PAC, which means some material that is very super reactive to light, and solvent that is very easy to vanish, like a gasoline and anything else. So, how we compose the percentage of these materials as a different way, the different factors will the PR will have. And so, let's say for the first positive way, just think. We overlay PR here on the surface, and then let's guess we just beam some inner light to the PR, but at the inner time path, I came here to check whether this works well or not. But when I checked, nothing have changed. Then at this moment, the problem will be the intensity of the light. Okay, so intensity of the light will be related to the frequency. Oh, sorry. The length of the light wave. The length of the light wave will be related to the frequency. And if the frequency were higher than the energy, just simply, the more energy the light will have. So, if you don't have the enough energy to the surface, then the PR will not be hardened or weakened, whether in the positive way or the negative way. So, it's very important if the intensity of energy of the light is when exposed, then it must be enough to close to the threshold of intensity that it will be enough to affect as a positive or negative way, or evenly over the threshold of the energy of intensity. So here's some equations of the constant ratio. So this ratio means if you expose the light on the surface for the negative way, this sector will be remained. Okay, of course there will be some residue that didn't enough react. So this means how the unexposed sector area and the exposed sector area will make the different effect and the result. Okay, going to the next step. Okay, welcome back. Sorry for ratings. The second topic will be about when we process a lithography, there is a progress with the light has some property of the wave and particles. So which means for the previous class I think there will be slit effect, which means so though we expose the light straight to the hole, the light have some reflection factor, so it is straight and it will make some more larger sector area that we didn't want it than we expected. So it means when making a pattern size, the pattern size will be more larger or more smaller than we expected. So you will have some unwanted result when making the semiconductors, and it will result to the change of the acting result or the acting mechanisms of the semiconductors. So for the for these vectors, we must have some solutions that can overcome these problems. So before starting of this one, let's say so Na and DOF. Na, which means neutral aperture. Na means when the light is injected in the when the light is beamed and injected through the slit or the patterns, and if we get to the range, and the range will accumulate the light to the inner focus dot or the targeted focus vector area, like this one. So the injected, so when the light that just get up from the range, it will have some angles. So when taking the examples like this, is range, light, it will be refracted and will get to a focus area like this one. So which means the Na will be the constant, maybe the constant of the light injected. So here, the light came to the targeted focus center area or dot, then raising a vertical line, then here is the angle that made the light that is injected or that is posed to the focus dot or focus area. Okay, the secondary, the DOF. DOF means depth of focus, which means this focus is meaning let's see, here is the camera here, just for the examples, and here's man, large man standings, the backward and the forward. So I want to take a picture of these men, as many as possible. So here's some problems. The focus area must be larger to take the man as possible as. So for this case, if I want to take more and more men in the camera screen, the density of, the depth of focus must be wider. But then, for this case, we must receive the less light from a hole. And secondary, if I want to just take a man, then we can enlarge the hole of the cameras and receive more and more light and just focus only this man. So at this moment, the depth of focus will be down or less. So let's see the equations. Na is the refractive index and multiplying the sine theta, and the CD, which means critical dimensions. Critical dimension is very important. When making the patterns and semiconductors, the critical dimension maybe will set the width or the length of the patterns. And the critical dimension means the minimal light size that we can make in the patterning or fabricating the semiconductors and during the process of fabricating. So, if the critical dimension is more smaller and smaller, we can say like this. The more smaller critical dimension is, the more precise and the more wanted pattern we can make. As we are in the trend of the downsizing of the semiconductors, and as we are in the second nanometers generation of the process in fabricating. So, when we see the equation, see the critical dimension equation will be the K1, the process vector, the ignore, and the lambda maybe it means the length of wave, and any usual aperture here. Okay, And for the density depth of forecast will be the K2, which means another process vector constant and double multiplying of the NA over lambda. Okay, so his problem. So NA has been more bigger, then the critical dimension will be more smaller. Maybe it can be good for some vectors, but also the density of focus will be more smaller. So we can say like this: if the density of focus, the depth of focus is more smaller, and the neutral aperture is more larger, we can say like this: the more smaller and the more precise picture will be made. But here is some problems. First, if we need somewhat larger patterns that is not very small than we wanted, then the time will be more expanded. The time will be exhausted than we expected. And secondary, since the intensity is very strong in the higher natural aperture and in the lower density focus, we don't know how the result will came out with strong intensity. So we can select it. So as the neutral aperture is more larger, which means the more angle the light being injected at the focus area, then the more photons will be injected and will interfere to the procedure of the lithography. So, okay. If I take some very good example of how the DOF and NA will affect in the processing of the fabricating or etching, anyway, or removing. See? This is PR. And we want to remove this PR. So the best way will be enlarging the DOF and getting on over this will be more good. But if the DOF is more smaller, then only a little sector area will be interfered and intersected, and some limit residues will be remained, and it will take lots of time than the larger DOF. Of course, there are each factors, good things and bad things. So, in making a product, it will be necessary to consider the DOF and the NA and the light intensity. Okay, so in secondary, the intensity intersect or just proportion of the light intensity. So I said the light is a wave. So which means, let's guess. Here is the light here, and when it's exposed to proportion, you have more intensity and more brighter light. So it means the more intensity you will have as a double side, or similar to this. So when exposing the light to the PR, let's guess. The first and the second wave that came from that reflected from the particle have same phase angle, so it can be like say the superposition, maybe the integrated power of the density, the intensity of light. So here will be the more doped or the more light processed, and here is the reverse. So in the reverse case, it may have same power and it will be very small wave. So here we have some dark fringing, and finally, if this light intensity is under the threshold intensity energy, then this vector will be not in the procedure of the lithography. So it will make some unwanted vector sector area of the procedure of lithography. So, controlling the light intensity and the interference of each light is very important. So, for these factors, here are some solutions. As first, OPC and secondary, the PSM. So PSM is, let's guess, we just beam the light to the straight to the vertical, the pattern or reticle mask. Then, this is, the effect will be like this. The wanted and ideal case, but in the real case, if the reflection have happened, it will be like this. So, here is the superpositional sector area of the light wave. So, we need to sector the density here unwanted, so we must remove this sector. So, we put a wave reversal here. Then, the light that being exposed will be act like this. Here and so in this moment, with the superposition, here will be the almost nearly zero, and here will be the original one that we wanted to engage or just beam. So maybe it will not be clear, but there will be the research that we wanted, similar to the ideal case. Okay, and then the aperture have and the case of controlling the aperture. So I take some example of the camera's lens. So it gets there is a hole, and the light will be reflected, and the light will be reflected and will be work like this. Here is the focus. So how we just control the hollow side that receive the light path? The focus density will be far or closer, or even the DOF will be changed. So for a single aperture, only one hole here. Then with the reflection of light, there will be more enlarged research. And secondary, the double means dipole, the double hole on the aperture. So the hole is here. Here will be proportion, but have somewhat more wire range than the single pole. And secondary, quadrupole. The quadrupole is most effective way in this H and most mainly used one. So for the quadrupole. Of course, we can ignore the superposition of light, but for the previous case of PSM and OPC, we can resolve the superposition problems. So this will have more large area. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just forgot talking about OPC. So taking the example of OPC, here it is. So I just recast it from a professor to make the square-shaped patterns. Okay, make the square pattern of a die. So let's see. So I made some squared reticle and beamed, but we know the refracted light. So the pattern that I just made will be a square, but somewhat rounded. The edges rounded square. Very different from the ideal case that we wanted to make. So if I make so much here more enlarged, I can make the square patterns. Then, here solutions, OPC will be here. If the light is superposition, then the sector, the superposition is supposed to be more large, and sector area that just reflected in the superposition will be just rounded, or even shrink. So, see, if I make some holes that can work as the enlarging factor, then maybe it will be like this. Not a perfect square rectangular, but similar to the I wanted to build up. So this is the process of PC, making another additional holes that the light can pass and making the patterns that I want to make. So if this additional part is more far from the patterns, then it will be like this, not a square, but not even a wanted pattern. But it's more super closure, like this. Then maybe similar, maybe better than the original one, but some rounded area. So, and secondly, if I have some more larger hole here, then the square is just messed up, and here will be the result that I didn't want it. So, controlling the size of the additional parts and the distance from the main patterns will be important to make how we want to make the patterns more precise and wanted as a method. Okay, thank you, and we are going to the next step of the video. So the final chapter of this review videos. So when making a wafer, it is also it will be very important how we make and what kind of method we will use to make the patterns and the product. So there is two mainly using patterns. So method. First, area, which means litho etching. So anyway, so litho etch, which means making the piers and etch the even hard mask and the litho and cutting overlay again and etching. So anyway, let's see with the picture or with the images. First, we use some mask here, and in the all of the process of litho etch is the positive way. So let's say we just set the pier over here layer, and the hard mask which can be work as the nitrogen silicons or oxide nitrogen silicons. So the positive here will be the breakdown, and then remove the pier, and then then secondary we replace or deposit new pier over the layer, that's a little place. And with this new pier we use another new mask like this, and remove the mask and etching, then it will be completed. This method is the double trench pattern process. For this method, when making the metal layer or the metallization is used mainly, and secondary, for the secondary, same case, it's supposed to light in a positive way, and then set new pier here. But here is the difference. For the previous way, we didn't, we just remained some hard mask, but here we remained both hard mask and PRS to work as a mask. So you mask and remain some PR, so we don't need some patterns and making, so we don't need to recognize the how it will remain of the hard mask in the double line approach like this. So the PR and hard mask will work as another mask on the surface. So etching following these lines and removing the hard mask and the PR, then the same process as the previous one. For this case, we use for the poly or active layers. Okay. For the area, there is some problems. As you can see, if the line is not precise and well done, or just those areas are well, there will be some errors or some difference in the processing procedure or fabricating procedure. So, for example, here are some methods, and we just etch these vectors. Then the connectivity will be harmed and destroyed. So the connected power will be lost, and the surface or the metal itself will be harmed and will be distorted or even destroyed or cracked. So this will finally be the result of uneven length or particles unevenness. So this result at this moment, we know that just a moment, sorry. For this moment, this means looks like a capacitor spectrum, right? So we know that the time constant which can be worked with it can be said RC, resistance and capacitance. So in the time with reverse to the frequencies. So frequency is the reverse of tau, the time constant of operating. So if the constant is more larger and larger, and we know the total capacitance is for the average like this, and for the parallel way, total capacitance will be like this. So very hard. So here are some problems. If the capacitance is not even and have somewhat difference, very big difference between each capacitors, then total capacitance, then the total capacitor will be changed unevenly, and somewhat the tau will be changed. And for the second way, for the second program, the parasitic capacitance. The parasitic capacitance will be linked like this. Since the pins are merged, so for this case, at the end of the pin, here will be the total cap, or the most big one plastic cap that is interpreted from the each pin's merging vectors. So the parallelly connected capacitance is super big, so it will be also affect the operating frequency. So we, of course, we know we can evenly perfectly make this product well, but if we have some solutions, so reducing the residue or making the perfect evenness when making this one, then the product that we just made will be work as a perfect function state. And finally, FAB. Sorry, I just forgot the spelling of what it means, but I can say about what it is. So, in the procedure of the FAB, see, surface here and polyshield and hot mask and BARC, the bottom arc. So, okay, see, we just resolve and etch and make some patterns here. And then, at this moment, we deploy some space dampers, spacers, and then etch back within the within the length of the damper or solid spacer. So let's guess. Maybe the eaglejet and the shortest length or height will be here. So within the length of the, we curve around the fins or pattern we just made. So that this part will be removed, and maybe it will be like this. Somewhat edge rounded. Okay. And then remove the mask and some residues and clean up, and we will be like this pattern one. So of course here is some problems. When etching and removing the gradient, there must be somewhat the more decreased layers length when engraving or removing or lithography. So it will make somewhat different of the procedures, and the result will be not the factor that we didn't want. So here, so for this effect, we call this as a pitch working. Pitch working. As the critical dimension has been changed unevenly. Okay, thanks for listening to this the first video of repeating. Thank you.